Here are some of the biggest storylines in Week 1. The LA Rams will begin their title defense in the same place they hoisted the Lombardi Trophy, at home in SoFi Stadium against the team favored to win Super Bowl 57, the Buffalo Bills.
It's a new season. We're looking to go out and accomplish a goal, and that's to win the Super Bowl. We know that.
No shortage of revenge games in Week 1. Broncos country, let's ride. Russell Wilson and the Broncos riding into Seattle in Week 1. Wilson spent a decade with the Seahawks, leading them to a Super Bowl championship.
Always be a special place in my heart forever. And for me, it's about going out there and trying to play the best football for our football team here, and I'm going to try to go win.
In Carolina, Baker Mayfield will face the team that drafted him #1 overall. A chance to prove that Cleveland made a mistake when they traded him away in the offseason. The Browns are 0-16-1 in their past 17 season openers, the longest Week 1 winless streak in NFL history. Joe Flacco is in line to start in place of the injured Zach Wilson in Week 1 against the Ravens, the same team that drafted Flacco and the same team he helped win a Super Bowl title. We've got AFC West rivals clashing in Week 1 when the Raiders and Chargers renew pleasantries. This after their Sunday night classic in the regular season finale, which sent the Raiders to the playoffs and the Chargers packing.
I think we have the team and definitely the pieces. And it's all about how we come together and work as a team. So I'm looking forward to the challenge, of course.
The player drafted right before Justin Herbert in 2020 was Tua Tagovailoa, and it's a make-or-break year for him in Miami. Tua and Tyreek open the season against Tua's former Alabama teammate Mac Jones. And get this, Miami is favored against New England for the first time since 2013. Our first Sunday night game takes us to Dallas, where Tom Brady will begin his 23rd season in the NFL, a chance to set the tone against Dak Prescott and America's team. Whether you're throwing down on the games, pumped for fantasy football, or hopeful that your team can win it all, the NFL season is about to kick off, and not a moment too soon.
Yes, indeed, preseason in the rearview mirror, and we are full throttle towards the regular season. To help us look ahead to Week 1, we're bringing our Sportsline analysts Emory Hunt and Larry Hartstein. The regular season is 1 week from Thursday when the Super Bowl champ Rams host the Buffalo Bills. This is only the second meeting between Sean McDermott and Sean McVay. That first one, wild, high-scoring. Bills won 35-32 back in 2020, and the teams combining for 853 yards, 51 first downs in that game. Emory, Buffalo is a slight favorite here, the number 52. How do you see this first game of the season shaping out?
Well, Sherry, it's always the fourth preseason game, this first game. So I expect a low-scoring game. So if I had to take a total, I will go under. But I look at the Bills here. Those points with Buffalo, I feel like their defense will do a great job in getting after Matthew Stafford. We know he's replacing Andrew Whitworth, the future Hall of Famer at left tackle. He hadn't played all preseason, Stafford I'm talking about. So this is the worst opponent, in my opinion, to kick off your season against a very aggressive group. I like Buffalo here to cover.
Emory, we're going head-to-head right away because Sean McVay knows how to win in Week 1. 5-0 straight up, 5-0 against the spread, outscoring their opponents 163-70. And there really is no Super Bowl hangover for the winner. They're 19-3 straight up, 8-1 in the last 9. And I just think this is a little bit of an overreaction to, Matthew Stafford having those potential injury issues over the summer. And now we've seen this line switch all the way to the Bills on the Rams' home field, almost favored by a field goal. I think this is going to be a thriller. It's going to come down to the wire, and I'll take the points.
Yeah, so much talk about that elbow for Matthew Stafford. How about in the Big Easy? New coach in New Orleans, Dennis Allen, has the key additions to his secondary on D. Jameis Winston has the keys to the offense for the Saints. They're giving 5.5 as they open the season in Atlanta. There's a total here of 42 and a hook against a Falcons team that no longer has Matt Ryan under center. Emory, how do you see it?
Well, they may have lost the city's safety today in C.D. Deuce, who was traded off to Philadelphia, but they still have America's quarterback in Jameis Winston. I'm laying these points with the Saints here. And all jokes aside, where the Saints have the Falcons beat is up front in the trenches on both sides of the ball. That offensive line has the advantage against that Falcons defensive front, and that defensive front of New Orleans is aggressive. They're active, and they get after the quarterback. I think that'll be the difference in this game, and they'll be able to ease Jameis Winston back in some real action here coming off of that ACL injury. I love the Saints here laying those points.
Totally agree, Emory. I think Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, those guys are going to feast on a very bad Falcons O-line. There is no home field advantage for the Falcons. They didn't cover any of their last 7 home games last season, and I think there'll be almost as many Saints fans in Atlanta ready to party. I mean, the Falcons GM said, we're going to take it on the chin this year. When do you hear a GM say that? This is a total rebuild with Marcus Mariota. They'll probably be drafting in the top 5 and maybe get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. And we know those Saints fans really can bring the party wherever they go, especially in a conference game there. But let the Trey Lance era begin when the 49ers visit the Chicago Bears. San Francisco putting their hopes on the shoulders of the second-year QB. But Jimmy G's still in the building. He's going to be the backup. As for Chicago, a new era in the Windy City. They have their 4th head coach since 2014. 49ers favored by a touchdown, over under 41.5. Larry, eyeing a side or a total here? Well, I'm eyeing a side, but I'd like to tease the 49ers down from 7 to 1, and you can parlay this. I mean, pair it with the Vikings and put them up over a touchdown, getting more than a touchdown against the Packers. If you have to play it straight up, I would lay the points with the Niners. The Bears have the worst offensive line in football. They're in a complete rebuild as well because of all the bad decisions made by their GM, Ryan Pace. And I think the 49ers with Bosa and Armstead are going to dominate. Trey Lance has so many good weapons around him. He's got a brilliant offensive mind in Kyle Shanahan who will prepare him, and they should run all over the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I agree with you right there, man. It's about the offensive line of Chicago going up against one of the better defensive front sevens in football. So that's a tough matchup, especially when you're breaking in a new offense. And I know San Francisco is technically breaking in a new quarterback, so you may see some inconsistency here. But with the way that defense for San Francisco will get after Justin Fields, those bonus possessions that they'll get will just help the quarterback ease into the game a little bit faster than Chicago. So I love San Francisco here, so I'm laying the points.
How about AFC North division rivals matching up in Cincinnati? It's the Steelers visiting the Bengals, with these two teams kind of changing roles. A season ago, Joe Burrow and the Bengals coming off a trip to the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh turning the page on the Ben Roethlisberger era with Mitch Trubisky as their starting quarterback. The Bengals are laying 6.5 in a game that offers a total of 44 and a hook. Larry, what's the play?
Shocking to see Cincinnati laying this much to Pittsburgh, but it's deserved. You know, they beat them 3 straight times. It was 41-10 last year in Cincinnati. That game was 31-3 at halftime. It was totally over. Should be Mitch Trubisky for the Steelers. He's not going to be a lot worse than Big Ben. He might even be a slight improvement, but I just love what the Bengals did in the offseason. They had one big weakness, the offensive line. They addressed it. Jamar Chase going to be lining up in the slot all over the formation. They're coming up with a lot of wrinkles, and this passing attack is only going to get better. I'll lay the points.
Yeah, I'm going to lay the points as well. It doesn't matter if it's Kenny Trubisky or Mitch Pickett. They're the same guy, in my opinion, right? You just mix both of those guys up. But I do think the Bengals are catching a break here because Trubisky will get the start at quarterback and because they're going to have an efficient passing game, which allows that Bengals secondary to rally up, make a stop, and get off the field. I just worry about the Steelers' defensive back 7 in stopping this outstanding passing game of Cincinnati with that improved offensive line that Larry talked about. So I'm going to lay these points rather shakily against Pittsburgh because I love their defense, but I don't trust their offense.
All right, so that's 3 for 3. These guys are in lockstep so far. When you look at this in terms of how they see things going. What about the the Lions game? Yeah, I mean, we saw them behind the scenes, right, with the excuse me, in progress of the Hard Knocks. They're taking on the Eagles come week 1. They're expected to fly high this season. Detroit is a 4-point underdog, total 48 and a hook. And Emory, it was just a couple weeks ago, you and I were chatting. One of your winners, right, of the preseason was Detroit. You think that they can get this win against Philly?
No, and last year, to use another Motor City reference, they beat the brakes off the Lions last year. How about that, right? And so when you look at this Eagle team, vastly improved on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they improved at every level of their defense. That was the weakness last year, more so than people wanted to talk about the passing game. It wasn't the passing game. It was that they couldn't stop anybody. They'll get a lot of stops in this game. They'll get a lot of stops throughout the season. I still don't trust Jared Goff. That's a hindrance to this Lions offensive attack. They'll try to run the football and play close, tight defense and keep it close, but it won't happen because the Eagles' defensive front seven is vastly improved. So I'm laying those points with Philly.
This is a tough one because the Lions are definitely going to be improved, and they are strong on both of their lines. But the Eagles' offseason was incredible when you add A.J. Brown and Hassan Reddick and you draft Jordan Davis to play alongside Fletcher Cox, who is going to be able to run the ball against that defensive front. And like Emory mentioned, last year Philly went to Detroit 44-6, 236 rushing yards. They had their way. I'll lean Philadelphia.
All right, you know what they say about like minds. A lot expected from Tua and the Dolphins this season. Miami adding Tyreek Hill as a weapon for Tungo Vailoa, while it's season 2 for fellow Alabama signal caller Mac Jones, a starting quarterback for the Pats. New England visiting Miami as a 3-point underdog. The total for this South Beach kickoff is 45.5. Emory, what are you looking at in this game?
I feel like this is a bad matchup. When you look at the Dolphins offense, you get excited. You love the speed. You love the weapons. You love the potential of Tua Tagovailoa in year two of being a full-time starter. And then you look at the Patriots offense, you see an NFL Europe roster, right? So I look at the Dolphins. I love the Dolphins in this one. I'm laying those points with Miami. Their defense should be able to curtail a pedestrian offensive attack from New England. So I like the Fins here.
You know, we saw in the last preseason game Tua throw a 51-yarder to Tyreek Hill, and basically to say this offense is going to be explosive. And under Mike McDaniel, this guy is a brilliant mind. He's the guy that had Deebo Samuel as a running back, and the 49ers hated to lose him. And what did the Patriots do this entire preseason on offense? Nothing. 7 drives by the starters, 1.4 points per drive. They had 4 drives with their starters against the Raiders' backups in the last preseason game. 3 points. I mean, Mac Jones didn't have time to throw. He didn't have receivers open, and the running game couldn't get going either. So it was kind of a clean sweep under Matt Patricia and Joe Judge of how bad this offense looks right now. I'm going to lay the points as well.
Making our way through the slate, 1 p.m. on CBS, the Ravens visiting the Jets. And New York's lost 5 of their past 6 season openers. Zach Wilson suffering a bone bruise and meniscus tear in that first preseason game. This sets up Joe Flacco as the potential starter against his former team, who he led to a Super Bowl in 2012. The football gods they have such good irony, don't they? Larry, who do you have the edge in this one?
I want to take the points because the Jets are at home and they've really upgraded the roster. I like a lot of their moves. I like their coaching staff. And even the young receivers were saying how great it is to catch a ball from Joe Flacco. He knows how to put touch on it. He's the veteran. But then you go out and see Joe Flacco remind you in the last preseason game with another pick 6 that there is going to be a big mistake in this game that he's going to make just because he's a statue. At this point in his career, he's a statue. And the Ravens, everyone is high in the Ravens this year for good reason. They had the worst injury luck of any team this century last season. They were still 8-3 before it fell apart. And John Harbaugh, except for last year when they lost to Vegas in overtime, they usually dominate in week 1.
Absolutely, Larry. I'm laying the points for the Ravens. They usually dominate in week 1, so I don't care who's out there. It could be the Jets. It could be the 85 Bears. The fact that the Ravens take the preseason seriously, it gets them prepared for week 1. And they're facing an immobile guy in Joe Flacco. Expect a lot of blitz, expect a lot of press on the outside, expect them to smother that run game, and expect Lamar Jackson in what should be a contract season to come out like gangbusters. I think this one may even look like that Dolphins game of 2019. So I like the Ravens here big.
Yeah, that's odd looking at that record. The Ravens 8-9 last season. You're not accustomed to them being a sub-500 team. Trevor Lawrence gets a fresh start in year 2 as Jaguars quarterback with Doug Peterson as new coach. Jacksonville visiting our nation's capital for a kickoff in Washington, which means the debut for Carson Wentz as Commander's starting quarterback, his 3rd team in 3 seasons. The home team laying 3 points, the total here at 44. Larry, what's your read on this kickoff?
Well, Jim, you said 3rd team in 3 seasons. They probably didn't need to trade for him because he would have been released. I mean, he was one of the least accurate QBs last season, despite some of the numbers that look good, and his decision-making was horrific. So I just love the Jaguars because you have never had a bigger coaching upgrade from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson, a Super Bowl winner. Plus, the Jaguars spent $260 million, got a lot of good pieces in Christian Kirk and Brandon Scherf and Darius Williams. So they made a lot of good moves. I'll take the Jaguars and the points.
All right, well, going back to the scheduling gods having a bit of a laugh, Baker Mayfield looking for his revenge against the Browns come week 1. He said, and I quote, "I'm going to F them up." The Browns, they're winless in their last 17 season openers, so the odds could be on Baker's side to see that through. But the odds makers think this is going to be a close one. Larry, what do you think? Which way are you leaning?
Well, as much as Baker Mayfield wants to get back at the Browns, I think some of the Browns players, they know him really well, and they would like to make a statement too. This line was Browns -4.5, and now it's Panthers -2. I mean, that's a 6.5-point move for Baker Mayfield over Sam Darnold, and the confirmation that Jacoby Brissett is going to be starting for the Browns. I mean, do you remember Jacoby Brissett was 5-2 with the Colts in 2019? Then he hurt his knee and things fell apart. But with a great running game and a great defense like he has with the Browns, I mean, this team averages over 5 yards a carry. They had 20 rushing touchdowns. The Panthers, lost their best pass rusher in Hassan Reddick. They lost their best corner in Stephon Gilmore. This is going to be a tight game. I will take the Browns and the points.
All right, well, we got another 44-point total here that comes in for the Colts and Texans, kicking off Indy with Matt Ryan taking over at quarterback, giving the home team 8 points. Houston with Lovie Smith as new coach, leaning on second-year quarterback Davis Mills to direct their offense. But they are big home dogs. So, Larry, you picking a side or focused on a total here?
I'm going to pick a side. This is a ton of points with a Colts team that is very conservative and will be running the ball early and often with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, the Colts can be up 2 touchdowns, and Davis Mills can rally them back for the backdoor cover. Dameon Pierce has been the breakout star of the preseason. 11 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown. He's so much fun to watch, the rookie out of Florida. You've got him, you got Brandon Cooks, and they made a lot of underrated moves, improving their offensive line. I don't pick the Texans to win, but I do think they'll cover.
And I got to tell you, I had Davis Mills in a couple Texan games last year on the sideline, and some of his numbers are sneaky better than you think. So we got to watch out for that.
He had a pretty decent season this first year, no doubt, no doubt.
All right, Larry Hartstein, thank you so much. All right, Week 1 picks rolling on here on CBS Sports HQ. Russell Wilson saying, let's ride, as he leads the Broncos against his former team. Don't miss more of our expert picks next.
We're going to play our best guys, when the season starts. And whoever those guys are going to get the reps.
There's going to be growing pains, particularly with younger players. And I appreciate this about Aaron. It's just the urgency to get some of this stuff corrected. He's the ultimate competitor. I think it's good for these guys to feel that.
The bottom line is you need to do it the way the coach wants it done. And I find that when you're coachable and you learn it the way they want it, that's when you have the most success.
This is going to be an explosive offense. I think Kirk Cousins, at times, I've been very critical of him, but he's going to put up monster numbers in this offense with Kevin O'Connell.
It just looks so good. I can't wait to go out there and actually, show what we really have. We just got to really roll through one game at a time, but this league is too hard to be looking down the road when you got a really good opponent from our division staring right at us September 11th.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to. We are back on HQ and extend our look at Week 1 of the NFL. Let's take a look at some of the more juicy matchups, your late afternoon matchups. And welcome back, CBS NFL analyst Emory Hunt, as well as the maestro, fellow sports line analyst Larry Hartstein. And gentlemen, Sunday's late afternoon matchup has Aaron Rodgers and the Packers visiting Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. Green Bay favored by 2 points. The total here at 54. Larry, what's your read on this game?
Well, the Packers want to start off better than they did last season when they had a total no-show against the Saints. They lose 38-3, and now they're going in without Devontae Adams. And I think they're walking into a Vikings team that's going to be much improved under Kevin O'Connell. I mean, Mike Zimmer, that regime had gone stale, a defensive coach. We all remember that Sunday night game. They were playing the Cowboys with Cooper Rush, and they just kept running the ball. They didn't let Kirk Cousins throw it. They weren't aggressive. Well, you're going to see a pass-first, aggressive offense with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne. I love the Vikings. I will take them on the spread, but also tease them up to 8, and you compare them with a lot of good teaser legs.
Oh, we're right on schedule, man. You got the U is back, you got Texas is back, and you got people believing in the Vikings once again. So I am going with the Packers here. And low-key, they're built the same way. They both have tremendous talent at wide receiver. The Vikings maybe a little bit more experience there. They have a lot of experience and talent on the back end of both their defenses. But it will come down to which quarterback can you trust. And that answer is easily, in my opinion, Aaron Rodgers. So lay those points with Green Bay.
Speaking my language here, Emory. And like the Packers this past season, the Titans, they were the 1 seed in the AFC, and they also bowed out of the playoffs in the first round last year. They host the Giants to kick off the season, and one of these teams will improve their record in their season openers. New York lost 10 of their past 11. Tennessee lost 4 of their last 6 season openers. Titans are a 5.5-point favorite, total 43.5. Emory, what do you like in this game?
First of all, I do like the fact that I was at both training camps. I attended a training camp practice in Tennessee, and I've been at Giants camp since the OTA and rookie mini camps and all throughout training camps. So I've seen both of these teams, and they are built the same way. They have big physical receivers on the outside, short, speedy guys on the inside, 2 great running backs. Defensive lines are going to be excellent. Quarterback play is where you will draw the line. I do think that obviously the Titans have the better quarterback, but the Giants are built very similar. I think this game will be a lot closer than people think. So I will take the Giants in the points here. This game started out, I believe, at like 6.5. It's now down to 5.5. I think we may see a field goal contest between these two. So that's why I'm taking the Giants in the points here, because they are built just like Tennessee.
Yeah, there's a clear, sharp move on the Giants. Everyone's in love with Brian Daboll. And, you know, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, none of these guys were really healthy. Kadarius Toney, they all missed a ton of games last season. And Daniel Jones, with this offense and all those guys healthy, at least to start, should be very competitive against a Titans team that should take a step back this season. I mean, losing your best receiver, your game changer, is going to have an impact. I don't think there's any way the Titans should be laying this many points. I'm on the Giants as well.
Yeah, Toney and Shepard didn't step on the field in the preseason. Let's take it up a notch with a trio of games that have totals in the 50s. 54 is the number for the Chiefs and Cardinals. Patrick Mahomes has a vastly different wide receiver room in KC. They're favored by 3.5 in the desert against Kyler Murray and the Cards. Murray has his new contract and has Hollywood Brown at wideout. Emory, what's your read on this kickoff?
I love the Chiefs here. I'm laying the points with Kansas City. Again, you can plug and play with Kansas City's receiving options. Yes, they still have Travis Kelce. They still have a lot of good talent at their disposal, the best offensive line in the AFC West. And we have to see Kyler Murray out there. I mean, we saw him calling plays all summer. That's great. He's going to be a great OC and head coach down the line. But this defense, to me, for Kansas City, is going to be much improved than what we saw toward the back end of the season, in which they got better. So I think this is a tough matchup for Arizona right there on the onset. So I'm laying those points with Kansas City. It should be a fantastic game nonetheless.
It's a shame this spread has moved off 3 because I still like the Chiefs, but not nearly as much as I did at 3. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins will not be playing. He's going to serve a suspension 6 games. And when he is off the field, this is a completely different team. They averaged 19 points without him. They averaged 30 with him and Kyler Murray in the game. And I don't think Hollywood Brown is going to replicate what DeAndre Hopkins does. And then you lose your best pass rusher in Chandler Jones. I think the Cardinals are in trouble, not only this game, but for the whole season. And I'll lay the points as well.
The Chargers and Raiders start the new season against each other after ending last year against one another. At 4:25 Eastern on CBS, we'll finally get to see the renewed connection between Derek Carr and Davante Adams. But you got to think, Justin Herbert, he's got to be fueled by revenge, right? They just missed the playoffs at the hand of the Raiders. Chargers favored by a field goal. What's your read in this one, Larry?
This is my favorite play of the week. This is the only play I've posted at Sportsline thus far, and I'm laying the points. We saw the Raiders cut their first-round pick from last year already, the tackle Alex Leatherwood, and the coach basically saying, Josh McDaniels, we're still looking to figure out who's going to start on the offensive line. They only have 2 starters identified. They're evaluating film. They're looking at the waiver wire. Basically, this offensive line is very, very shaky. So I don't think Derek Carr and Davante Adams are going to have all that much time to work downfield, whereas the Chargers, total continuity, the same offense for the second year in a row. Every key playmaker is back for Justin Herbert. They're absolutely loaded. And then you add Khalil Mack to a defense that already had Bosa and Derwin James, and then you also had Kyle Van Noy. I love the Chargers all season, but especially in week 1.
Again, we're right on schedule. Texas, Minnesota, the Chargers believe going to the Super Bowl. I need to see the Chargers stop the run. And the good part about what the Raiders did in the preseason, they ran the football on everybody. The Chargers want to improve in that area. You add Khalil Mack, that's fine, but can they stop the run? If they can't stop the run, you won't see Justin Herbert in that offense have the football because it'll be little possessions of what they are going to be able to do. So I do like the Raiders in the points here. I think what they did last season gives them a little bit of that edge going into this ballgame. They now believe they can win. They expect to win. I think their run game will be the difference here. So I'm taking the Raiders in the points.
All right, gentlemen, the Sunday night matchup offers the Brady Bunch at America's team. Tom Brady and the Bucs laying 1.5 at Dak and the Cowboys. You have to wonder how much Tyron Smith's absence will impact that Dallas offense. The game offers a total of 50. Larry, how should our viewers play it?
I have no idea on the side on this one. I'm completely honest with you on that. And, if the Buccaneers come in and look very impressive, I think every quarterback in the league is going to say, I should take off 2 weeks from training camp. But I just think both offenses are going to struggle a little bit. You mentioned Tyron Smith, the best lineman, maybe the best player on the Cowboys. He's gone. They also lost 2 starters in the offseason, and the Bucs, they've been decimated by offensive line injuries. Jensen, 3 others. I just think both offenses are going to struggle. We know the Cowboys are going to run the ball or try to run the ball over and over with Zeke Elliott and Pollard. So I'm going to lean under 50 points.
I'm going to take the Cowboys in the points here. I remember being on the Cowboys side last season in the opener, and people thought I was crazy. And that game ended up being one of the better games that we saw all season long. This season, expect the same thing. What kills the Bucs is the fact that teams be afraid to throw against that secondary. If you're not afraid, the Saints, the Rams, the Cowboys in week 1, you will find a lot of success out on the perimeter. So I love the Cowboys and that aggressiveness in their passing game with Dak Prescott 2 years removed from that ankle injury. He's coming off his best season. I like the Cowboys in this one. I think they get revenge and beat the Bucs straight up.
Week 1 is capped with another QB facing his former team on Monday Night Football. Russell Wilson cooking up in a new kitchen this season, riding out with a new squad, the Broncos. The last time Seattle lost a season opener was at home was 1999. It's in the hands now of Geno Smith to lead the Seahawks and keep this streak alive. Larry, what's your read in this game?
My read in this game is that Russell Wilson will get his revenge, and that narrative will play out. I mean, the Broncos have a great defense. They allowed less than 19 points a game last season. Somehow, with Vic Fangio, they went 7-10 despite outscoring their opponents. I mean, that's really hard to do. They lost every heartbreaker, and now what they were missing, they have. They have the quarterback. And on the other side, I mean, the Seahawks, there's not much to say. They're going to try and run the ball in an era that is totally, dominant with passing. They're missing Bobby Wagner, DJ Reed. They're just missing a lot of pieces. They're kind of an anachronism out there with Geno Smith and Pete Carroll. I love the Broncos. I'll lay the points.
Yeah, I'm going to lay the points with the Broncos here. There's too much familiarity with scheme and personnel on both sides. So I feel like the Seahawks defense knows the ins and outs of Russell Wilson, and they'll be able to come up with a game plan. And on the flip side, Russell Wilson knows the ins and outs of that Seahawks roster. So I see a 20-10 game, but the Broncos winning because of what Larry talked about, that great Broncos defense. They have the best secondary, in my opinion, in the entire AFC West.
All right, that's our Larry Hartstein and Emory Hunt with your NFL late slate picks. Guys, we appreciate the insight. Thank you. And let's get another look at their picks for you. Here you have it. All right, they don't agree on all of them. Emory going with the Packers, Larry going with the Vikings, but they are in agreement going with the Giants as they visit the Titans. Both going with KC as they visit the Cardinals. Again, not lockstep here. Emory going with the Raiders while Larry picking the Chargers when those two square off. And Buccaneers at Cowboys, Emory likes Dallas, Larry taking under 50. But both guys riding out with Russell Wilson as they take on his former team, the Seahawks.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.